The forgotten church in the shadowed woods. The day hung heavy under low-hanging gray clouds, the kind that seemed to press down on you, making you wonder if the sky might just fall. Maggie Wilson stopped by an old wooden sign leaning precariously on its last leg, the lettering long since faded away. Behind it stretched the shadowed woods, a dark expanse of tangled trees and whispers. "Sure you want to do this?" Jack Carson asked, adjusting the straps of his worn leather pack. His voice carried that southern lilt, calm and steady like a river that hid its undercurrents. Maggie pushed her camera strap higher on her shoulder and squared her jaw. "I didn't come all this way just to stand here. I'm a photographer, Jack. I find stories, capture them, and show the world. That's what I do." Jack gave her a long, searching look, then nodded toward the trees. "All right, then, let's get to it. Sooner we start, the sooner we'll see if this was a good idea or just plain foolish." The woods swallowed them whole, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The deeper they went, the darker it got, the trees growing so close they nearly touched. Maggie felt the weight of the place settle on her shoulders like a shroud. "This forest is alive," she murmured, breaking the silence. Jack chuckled, though the sound held no warmth. "Alive's one way to put it, but it's got keepers, too. Folks who don't take kindly to outsiders." "Keepers?" Maggie glanced at him. "You saying this place has, what, guardians?" He shrugged, his eyes darting toward the shadows. "Sometimes legends are just that, and sometimes they're warnings folk were smart enough to leave behind." Before she could press him further, a sound drifted through the trees, a soft, trembling cry, a child's cry. Maggie froze. "You hear that?" she asked, her voice hushed. Jack's brow furrowed. "Yeah, I hear it." The crying grew louder, and Maggie's heart twisted. Through the branches, she spotted a small figure hunched on the forest floor. A girl, her shoulders shaking as she wept. "Oh my God," Maggie breathed. "She's just a child." "Maggie, wait," Jack warned, but she was already moving toward the girl. The girl looked up as Maggie knelt beside her. Her hair was tangled, her face streaked with dirt and tears, and her pale eyes shimmered with a strange, otherworldly light. "Hey there, sweetie," Maggie said softly. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl sniffled, hugging her knees tight. "They took him," she whispered. Maggie's stomach dropped. "Who took them?" The girl's gaze drifted to the trees. "The ones who live in the church." Jack stepped closer, his boots crunching on the leaves. "We need to go," he said, his voice tight. "Now. We can't just leave her." Maggie protested, scooping the girl up. She was lighter than she ought to be, her small frame barely more than bones. "Her name's Lily," Maggie told Jack, as if that settled it. Jack just muttered something under his breath and trudged ahead. They hadn't gone far when a new figure appeared on the trail ahead of them. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a grizzled beard and eyes that cut sharp and blue through the gloom. A woodsman, by the look of him, with an axe slung casually over one shoulder. "You shouldn't be here," he drawled, his voice rough as bark. "This forest don't take kindly to strangers." Jack bristled. "And who are you to say where we can go?" The woodsman shifted his axe, not threatening, but not friendly either. "Someone who's seen what happens when fools like you come nosin' where they don't belong." Maggie stepped forward. "Look, we're just passing through. We're trying to find the old church." The woodsman's expression darkened. "You're worse than fools. That church is a pit of damnation. Ain't nothing there for you but death." He turned on his heel and disappeared into the trees, leaving only the faint creak of his axe swinging on its handle. Lily watched him go, her pale eyes unblinking. "Do you know him?" Maggie asked. Lily shook her head. "But he's right." They pressed on, the forest growing stranger with every step. The air felt heavy, thick with something unsaid. They came upon a clearing, and in its center sat an ancient stone well, its edges crumbling with age. Moss crept over the sides like grasping fingers. "What is this?" Maggie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack walked to the well's edge, peering down into its inky depths. "The bottomless well," he said. "A portal, some say. A trap, others reckon. All I know is, no one who goes in ever comes out." As he spoke, Maggie felt a strange pull, as if the well were calling her. A whispering rose from the dark, soft and insistent. Maggie! Her name. The well was calling her name. "Maggie, step back!" Lily cried, grabbing her arm. Maggie stumbled, breaking free of the spell, her heart hammering in her chest. "What the hell was that?" she gasped. "The well," Lily said, her voice trembling. "It takes people. It almost took you." Jack scribbled furiously in his notebook, seemingly unfazed. "It's true, then," he muttered. "The well is a doorway." "Doorway to what?" Maggie demanded. But Jack only shook his head and moved on. The church loomed ahead, its blackened stones rising like a monolith in the trees. It was ancient and broken, yet there was a feeling of waiting about it, as if it had been sitting here all these years, knowing they would come. "This is it," Jack said, his voice reverent. The doors groaned as they pushed inside. The air was thick, smelling of mildew and something metallic. Maggie's eyes roamed over the strange altar at the center, where a massive book sat bound in leather and chains. A small boy stood by the altar, no more than 5 years old. His eyes were wide and bright, his clothes old-fashioned. "Who are you?" Maggie asked, her voice soft. The boy tilted his head. "My name's Tommy. I was the priest here." Maggie blinked. "You're a priest?" Tommy nodded solemnly. "They killed me, but I stayed. Someone has to protect this place." Back in the forest, Jack stood at the edge of the well, his fists clenched. The shadows had paused, hovering at the clearing's edge as if bound by an invisible barrier. Lily stepped toward Jack, her expression unreadable. "She's safe now," the girl said softly. Jack turned on her, his face contorted with rage. You knew what this place was, and you still brought us here." Lily's pale eyes glinted in the fading light. "You brought her here. I just showed her the way." Jack took a step back, his chest heaving. The shadows began to shift, their forms growing taller, more defined. One of them spoke, its voice like a blade scraping against stone. "You have failed." The clearing erupted in chaos as the shadows surged forward, their hunger palpable. Lily stood her ground, her small frame radiating an unnatural glow. The figures recoiled, hissing in pain. "You won't have him," she said, her voice echoing with a power far beyond her years. Weeks later, a group of hikers found Maggie's camera near the edge of the shadowed woods. The photos inside were unlike anything they'd ever seen. Images of ruins, of shadows, of a girl with glowing eyes standing beside a stone well. No one ever found Maggie, but those who looked too long at the photos claimed they heard whispers, faint and persistent, calling their names.